All right, guys, so Biden's State of the Union address is coming up in a couple days, and the world is wondering, what is Biden going to come out and talk about? Because there's not too many W's that the Biden administration can actually talk about at this point, right? I mean, they've taken an L on everything, domestic policy, foreign policy. I mean, I can't find a W anywhere near Joe Biden, right? There are no W's anywhere for the guy, right? So, again, to me, when you get the State of the Union address, it's supposed to be an address in which the president kind of gouges the current state of the nation, where we're going, and it's supposed to be a time for optimism. However, again, there's only really been negativity and pessimism surrounding the Biden administration. Again, during a time of war, right? During a time of inflation, supply chain crisis, border crisis, crime crisis. Yeah, I mean, there's a crisis on all fronts, okay? So that being said, it'll be fascinating to see what Biden touts as a positive for his administration. In fact, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was actually asked by George Stephanopoulos how Biden is going to turn this around at the State of the Union address in the face of disastrous poll numbers. Take a look.
Right now, 37% approval rating. Democrats trailing badly in the midterm polling. A majority in our recent poll out this morning even questioned the president's mental capacity. How is he going to turn that around on Tuesday night? And how much has his State of the Union been changed by this war in Ukraine?
Well, George, I think there's no question that in the State of the Union, the American people and anybody watching around the world will hear the president talk about the efforts he has led over the past several months to build a global coalition to fight against the autocracy and the efforts of President Putin to invade a foreign country. That is certainly something that is present in all of our lives and certainly in the president's life in this moment. But what people will also hear from President Biden is his optimism and his belief in the resilience of the American people and the strength of the American people. And George, from covering State of the Unions for some time, that it is about delivering a message to the public at a moment in time. And if you look back when President Obama gave his first State of the Union, it was during the worst financial crisis in a generation. When President Bush gave his first State of the Union, it was shortly after 9/11. Leaders lead during crises. That's exactly what President Biden is doing. He'll speak to that, but he's also going to speak about his optimism about what's ahead and what we all have to look forward to.
Jen Psaki, thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, George.
All right, guys, so she didn't really give us a real answer or any insights, but at the very least, she did acknowledge that this country is, in fact, in a crisis, right? She said, hey, Obama gave his first State of the Union address during a financial crisis, and Bush gave his State of the Union address after 9/11. Okay, so hey, at least she's acknowledging that this country is, in fact, in a crisis, right? But I think what's about to happen here, right, despite the disaster that's going on, right, in the Biden administration, they're going to try to find a W somewhere. And I predicted back in January when the CDC first came out, Rochelle Walensky went on TV and actually told us that, hey, these are the actual deaths from COVID, right? People dying from COVID versus people dying with COVID, right? Information that a whole lot of people have been asking about, and her in the mainstream liberal media basically coming out and saying, hey, we might want to focus more on people dying from COVID than with COVID, and also hospitalizations from COVID versus with COVID. Okay, they started all of a sudden giving us numbers that we've been asking for, and I said, hey, this is mighty suspicious. I think that the narrative is about to change. Okay, I think that some of these mandates, some of these restrictions are going to start to ease up because the writing is on the wall. These mandates and these restrictions are not as popular as Democrats are making it out to be, right? And I'm pretty sure this is a part of the Democrat strategy, and now I have proof that it is in fact a part of the Democrat strategy, as Miss Julie Hamil on Twitter leaked an internal memo from a Democrat polling firm that basically is recommending that they take credit for ending the quote-unquote COVID crisis phase of the COVID war, right? And basically point to their victories in regards to the vaccine distribution and stuff like that, to basically say, hey, look, guys, COVID cases are dropping. We're declaring victory, right, over this pandemic. That's what this memo is basically telling Democrats to do, right? So let's actually read a little bit of stuff here, right? It says, below, we lay out some strategic thoughts for Democrats position themselves on COVID-19 after nearly 2 years of the pandemic. Quote, declare the crisis phase of COVID over and push for feeling and acting more normal. Wow. Isn't that what Republicans and conservatives have been saying for a while now? Quote, recognize that people are worn out and feeling the real harm from the years of long restrictions and take their side. You remember all the people that call anti-maskers, right, for saying that? Now, all of a sudden, Democrats, strategists are recommending that Democrats take that side, right? It also says, acknowledge COVID still exists and likely will for a long time. Oh, wow. The same talking points that people on the right were saying, that, hey, COVID's here and we kind of got to live with it, right? We kind of have to live with it, right? Don't set COVID zero as a victory condition. Wow. Who would have thought that, it would be very, very, very unlikely that the world would completely 100% eradicate the virus, right? Who would have thought that was unrealistic to set as a goal, right? Again, these are people that get paid millions of dollars to come up with stuff and talking points that I literally say on my channel and that conservatives have been saying for so long, right? Stop talking about restrictions and the unknown future ahead. Okay, so now they're basically recommending them to stop fear-mongering, okay? Stop talking about lockdowns. Stop trying to act like you're holier than thou because you claim to follow the rules that you actually really don't follow. Ding, right? Democrats are actually starting to figure it out, okay? And it just so happens that this comes ahead of Biden's State of Union address and the midterms, right? And lo and behold, guess what? The CDC, right? The government institutions are getting the memo as well, as the CDC announced that they're going to significantly ease pandemic mask guidelines. So now all of a sudden, they're going to be advising most Americans that, hey, you don't necessarily have to wear masks indoors anymore, right? Ain't it crazy how that happens, right? Ain't it crazy how all of a sudden this stuff comes out right before Biden's State of the Union address, okay? Right before the midterms. And even the mainstream liberal media is following along as well, too, as CNN's Chinese doctor, Leana Wen, who was their number one fearmonger just a year ago, has come out and basically talked about how harmful school closures have been for children.
Beyond this study is sobering, but not at all surprising. We know that school has benefit for children, and therefore when kids are pulled out of school, and also with the uncertainty of not knowing when they're going to go back, that has detrimental impacts, certainly on emotional well-being, on stress, including of the parents and caregivers who now don't know what to do about working at the same time. But also now we see that there are very specific impacts on cognitive development, on motor, and other stones for children. Also, we see that there are huge disparities in the study, that those parents and families that are the most vulnerable, most disadvantaged, are the ones that are hurt the most. And so at this point, we really need policies that aim to keep children in school. Perhaps, for example, not having quarantine if children are exposed, having test to stay or other programs. And we also need to be attentive to these long-term consequences. Can we work to close these rampant and wide educational disparities?
Oh, now we see the harm that has been done to children from an educational perspective over school closures, right? Now we see it, right? That's not something that the right has been talking about ever since we closed schools in the first place. Again, I love how these Democrats try to act like the science has changed, okay? We're in a different state. It's different because Biden and his magical policies made everything better. Even though, again, this is before the State of the Union, this is before the midterms, this is during a time in which, seasonally speaking, COVID tend to have less cases, right? Now, all of a sudden, the science is saying all the things that people on the right were saying the whole time, right? So, with that being said, they're not fooling anybody, right? They're not fooling anybody that's been paying attention, and nobody should let the Democrats get away with this. Nobody should forget that the Democrats advocated for these policies during the pandemic, right? And that they were the ones responsible for kids' learning loss and all the somewhat unnecessary things that we had to go through, right? They are the ones that were responsible for it. So I predict that Joe Biden, as a part of his State of the Union address and one of his positivities, he's going to come out here and basically try to give a victory speech in regards to COVID, right? He's going to come out here and say, because of my policies, because of the vaccine, because of this, because of that, we're now moving into a phase where we have less restrictions, less mandates, and it's all because of me. It's all because of what the Democrats did, right? That's literally what I think that he's about to do, right? And I think it's hilarious how the Democrats change the narrative once the politics change on this. But see, here's the thing. I think this stuff has always been unpopular. I just believe that because midterms are coming up and because Biden's got to the point where he's so unpopular, he's even losing people on the one thing that he actually had decent poll numbers on, which is the pandemic. I think at this point they say, hey, you know what? Maybe this authoritarianism ain't worth it. Maybe it ain't worth it at this point anymore. Okay. So, hey, who knows? But like I said, I predict that Biden's going to come out here doing a State of the Union address and, basically try to declare victory over this virus. But we'll see. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.